You're watching the Maryland Players Show on Fan Media. All right, this guy today, star football and basketball player in high school, wide receiver, cornerback in the football ranks, and a guard on the basketball court. Got a high school championship in both sports, football and basketball, although the basketball win against us was a little fluke, but I digress. Also, in the championship game versus Churchill, 99-yard pick six, 55-yard touchdown, 45-yard touchdown at the wide receiver position, dominated the game to a 42-21 win. Star point guard at the University of Maryland from 89 to 93. In his senior year, averaged 16 points, 6.5 assists, 5 rebounds. For his career, a total of 470 assists, which is good for number 9 all-time in Terp history. And career average assists, 5.2, which is good for number 4 in Terp history. Welcome to the show, Kevin McLinton. How you doing, my man?
Hey, what's going on, man? I appreciate that intro. You know, about 465 of those assists right there. So, I definitely know where to get a ball, man. I know where to get a ball to. So I appreciate you having me, man. I appreciate you having me.
So before we get started, let me let all the viewers know that throughout the course of this show, you're going to hear me say Juice. I gave him the nickname as a freshman, and that's why I know him by, saying, hey, Kevin, that sounds so weird to me. So we're going to keep it light here and keep it very comfortable. So to start things off, Juice, being from the DMV area, top-notch players all over the area. Give me a little bit of insight into how it was growing up competing against players growing up in the Montgomery County area.
It was tough, man, because back then we played outside. That's where we learned how to play is outside. We didn't play inside any gyms or anything like that. So I got my comeuppance, I guess, out there on the blacktop playing against kids that were older than me, playing against kids that were a little bit more established than me and my brother Dan. And that's really where we learned how to play. That's where we learned how to compete. And, I think that helped me in regards to knowing what it took in order to be able to compete against some of the best players that I eventually played against in high school and in college. Montgomery County was more so known as a football county as opposed to a basketball county. We had some good basketball teams, but I think it was more so football, whereas PG County was obviously known for basketball. But when you're playing, you don't think about those things. You're playing, you're competing, you're trying to do the best you can. And that's what I was all about, just playing hard and trying to be the best teammate I could be. And, I eventually learned that some really good coaching coming up. Coach John Baird, legendary John Baird, who was my high school basketball coach at Springbrook, and then obviously the great Hall of Famer Gary Williams, who we both played for. I was able to get some really good coaching, which helped me as far as being able to prepare and get ready for whoever I was playing against, any particular night. And going back to Maryland, just the ACC, playing in the ACC, every night you had a doozy. You had, if it wasn't Bobby Hurley, it was Kenny Anderson. If it wasn't Kenny Anderson, it was John Cloudie or Corey Alexander, Chris Whitney, Sam Cassell, just to name a few of those guys. So, but I think I was very well prepared because of my upbringing and the coaching I had, and obviously the great players I was able to play with.
So let's just stay in that lane a little bit, growing up. So you mentioned your little brother, Darren. So he was a prolific scorer at James Madison, and you were a guy who would all around score a little bit, drop dimes, defend, rebound. What was it like? What was those one-on-one games like growing up?
I was a kick his ass. No, it was fun, man, because I had a little brother who I know looked up to me, and we would go out and we on our blacktop right outside our house and just play games. And Darren was a different player than I was. I was more of a strong point guard who was more of a facilitator. Darren was a shooter, and we always talked about whether or not, what it'd be like if we played on the same team. Now, obviously, I'm 3 years older than him, so, it didn't come to be. But, I was a different player than he was. He was a great shooter. He was a really good offensive player. I was more, like you said, an all-round, well-rounded player. And that's why, I hung my hat on that. I took pride in that, being able to go out and defend really good players, but also being able to score when need be. But those times in the driveway were fun, man. We had a good time, and we helped each other. Dan helped me with things, and I helped him with some things for his game. So I think it worked out really well for both of us.
So you and Darren now, you guys do a podcast, College Park, PARC.
Yep.
I had the opportunity or the pleasure of being on there before, so great times, man. Tell me how much fun is that, having a podcast with your brother?
It's a lot of fun because that's what Dan and I used to do growing up. We used to always kind of debate sports and, basketball, football, baseball, soccer, you name it, we talked about it. And, I know about 4 or 5 years ago, we were talking and we were like, we need to do a podcast. And, we were able to get with First Amendment Sports, those guys, Kevin Ricker from St. John's, Ken Marangolo, a couple of those guys, even Tim Strachan, Tim Strachan, former Maryland quarterback, the Mather grad, who put that together, and we were able to do our podcast, which at that time was called the Hot Box. Yeah. And you were on that as well. So it's just us just talking, man, just going over with, what's going on in the sports landscape and basketball, football, whatever the case may be, and just adding a little bit of personality and a little fun to it. And we get a lot of excitement out of it. Now we have our own College Park, which is more geared towards Maryland basketball, but it also encompasses NBA and NFL and things of that nature, just things that are going on in the sports world. And, we just kick it and have fun with it, man. That's all.
Yeah.
It's all about nothing.
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier how good you were on the football field, man. I'll be remiss without mentioning the great Harold McClinton, a star NFL player, linebacker for the Washington football team, the Redskins back in those days. What was it like growing up playing sports as a kid? Your dad passed away in 1980. You were a young kid. So what was it like growing up, number one, playing sports and having a star in the sports world as a dad? And how did his passing affect you moving forward playing sports after that?
Well, it was tough, man, because, growing up in that environment, first of all, my mother and father are both from Atlanta, Georgia. And the reason why we came up here is because he was drafted by the Redskins. It could have been one of 30-some cities that we could have gone to, but he happened to be drafted by the Redskins and had a 10-year career, solid middle linebacker, he was voted back in 2002 as one of the 70 greatest Redskins of all time. So that alone tells you kind of what my brother and I grew up with. And he was as good a football player as he was a better person. He was always helping the community. He was always giving back. Back then they had 2 jobs. Like, you weren't just an all-around football player. They had a job in the summer, and he worked for Metro. So he was just always doing a lot of things to help the community. But, I think the main thing for me was trying to live up to that name. With that I guess that light, that spotlight on you, you think about just being, who you are, being his son. And I know it was tough for me because when he passed, I was 9 years old. And I know the toughest part about it was not so much, obviously the passing, but I think it was kids at that time didn't really know what to say to you because they wanted to, express their condolences and things of that nature, but it was hard for them to express themselves. So a lot of times I found myself being alone. And it was tough growing up. But, eventually things got better, but it took a toll on me because I started to struggle in school. And my mother had to put me into a private school just to kind of get some kind of structure, because I was struggling at the time. And then after I left my middle school, I went to Springbrook, and then I was able to kind of feel like, I was a kid, I just wanted to be a high school kid instead of being Harold McClinton's son, which was hard to do just because of everything he had done. And then as I was able to establish my name and who I was, I started becoming Kevin McLinton as opposed to Harold McClinton's son, which, to be honest with you, was not bad. I loved it. I loved, the fact that I was his son and everything he stood for. But I think as you want to become, kind of be your own person. And I think I was able to do that and kind of form my own career and do my own thing. But when I hear back and, from people that, former Redskins and his friends and people that knew him, that talk about him, they just talk about him with just such respect and such love. It makes me feel good because that was my dad, and I didn't get a chance to grow up with him like I wanted to, obviously, at 9, and Darren was 6. But just to hear people that spoke so highly of him, it makes you just feel good knowing that was your father and all the good things he did. But, it was tough, but at the same time, it was rewarding being able to have that kind of tutelage and have that kind of that man, the kind of person that kind of helped me to be who I am today.
Yeah, I know for myself, when I got drafted in the NBA, my dad had passed away, and it was a tough time for me, man. I remember my freshman year in high school, the first time I ever played on a team before. Up until that point, it was pure D street ball for me. So, the first time playing on a team and then coming out of that locker room and just seeing that look on his face, how proud he was of me. That really fueled me, man. And I searched for that every time I came out of the locker room.
Right.
When he passed away, it just hurt my focus on being a dominant player. I was in misery, and I never rebounded from that in my whole pro career. It had such a profound effect on me. It was almost like I was just going through the motions at that point in my career. But so I certainly can understand the impact that would have. Moving along, let's talk about the College Park days, man. So everybody didn't have the same relationships, same thought process going through that, playing for a guy like Coach Williams. How was that? How was it for you personally playing for a coach like Coach Williams?
I loved it. I loved it because his personality was one that I could embrace. He's tough. We all know that. He was a guy he is a guy, that really demands greatness. He demands hard work. He demands focus and detail. And that's what I was about. I grew up that way in high school. My coach was just like Coach Williams. So it wasn't hard for me to be able to gravitate towards him because I knew what he was trying to do. I knew what he was trying to get out of our team. And back then, Wiz, we were going through so much with the sanctions and all that stuff, and not being on TV and not being able to go to the NCAA tournament. And so it takes a certain kind of coach to be able to maximize the potential of a team when you're going against those kind of obstacles and those type of challenges. And I think Gary Williams was the best person for that job because not everybody could do that, knowing that you're playing, but there's no goal out there outside of just getting better and trying to improve the program. And I think that was what really, that's the respect I have for coaches because he took our team, especially I think my sophomore year, the junior year when you got hurt. And, when you lose a player like yourself and, we're scrapping as you had. We used to call us the scrappers, as you know. We scrapped and clawed and did everything we possibly could to try to get wins in the ACC. And that time, the ACC was dominant. You know that. And
real dominant.
You know that. It was dominant. It's nothing like the ACC now. It was dominant. So for us to even compete at that level with the challenges that we had just spoke volumes of the kind of coach he is or he was. And but I enjoyed it, man. I enjoyed just the times there and and being able to strap them up and compete.
I'm gonna tell you something, Juice. I remember, I think when I broke my leg in my junior year, it was probably like halfway through the season, and then you were the point guard out there, and I would watch you, man, and it was awesome to see you in the way you passed the ball. But then when I came back in my senior year, in the very beginning of the season, I was back at the point again. And I remember Coach coming to me after a few games saying that, hey, I'm gonna switch you off the ball and let Juice run the point, or Kevin run the point. And because he felt like it was too easy for teams to double team me. He wanted me coming off screens and attacking that way. For me, I always thought people always gravitated to the way I scored. I always thought the best part of my game was the way I saw the floor and made the defense play honest, which created offensive opportunities for me. So I was a little worried about not being able to have that ball in my hand. But after one practice with you, man, just watching it was different than being out there with you. And I could see how you was passing dudes open, how you would get me the ball right in my pocket on the break. And I was just like, man, you gave me so much confidence after one practice.
Right.
I knew Coach was on point with that right there, man. And so, growing up in the DMV, you touched upon it earlier. We get buckets here, man.
Right.
What was the pass first point guard? Where did that come from, man?
Well, I think it was just, you recognize your game and recognize who you have around you. I mean, you made the game easy, Walt, because, I studied your game as far as, when we were on the court together, we were practicing, I realized where you wanted the ball. I realized where you needed to be in situations where you could dominate, And so I took a lot of pride in figuring out ways to get you open in ways that you could be very, very effective, and that's what I took pride in. I took pride in my defense. I took pride in being able to put as much pressure on the defense, on the opposing team, offensively and defensively, that I could. And, I felt when you score, that's where I got my most satisfaction, is knowing that, to me, you were the best player in the country your senior year, man. And to me, to be able to be on the court with you and during that time, it was great, because I knew I and Evers and Vince and all the guys that played with you at that time, I know we took satisfaction off your accomplishments.
You did.
But that was my job, is to find a way to get you open, find a way to get you your 30 a night, as you were doing in the ACC at that time. And so that's really kind of where my mindset was.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. When I would come into the locker, man, you guys would let me know how many points I had scored before I even knew, So
right.
It made me feel good. It made me feel like you guys were more vested in it than me. So it made me feel comfortable. So look, in the summertime, you're coaching a couple of these current Terp guys, and you get a chance to see them up close and personal, and being able to help with the development. And also, you're coaching with the AAU program, the Capital City Thunder. Just talk a little bit about, coaching the kids up today as compared to, the way we played the game. Back in the day, the way we played the game was inside out, but the game now is outside in. So
right.
Do you adapt to that, or do you kind of bring, old school to the new school? What is that all about?
I think it's a mentality I have that I bring, but I think I've adapted to the way the game is now. You have to. Mm-hmm. Kids nowadays, they shooting 20 and 33s a game. You see the NBA game, how it is, and it's so different than when we played. The emphasis when we played was get the ball inside, like you said, and kick it out when you got double teams, swing the ball and get the best shot. Nowadays, you got kids coming down looking for their first three, and but you have to be able to adapt to those times, and that's what I've been able to do. I never thought I would coach AAU. We on our chat and we talk about it all the time, man, but I think it's more along the lines of just trying to help these kids develop, trying to help these kids become better players in any way that I feel that I can help. I think the way I can help outside of, X's and O's and things of that nature is just letting them know what college coaches are looking for. Whether they, the game hasn't changed as far as what coaches are looking for, as far as mentality, being prepared, body language, things of that nature. passing the ball, being able to be a good teammate, hustling, all those things like that hasn't changed. So being able to help kids understand that that's what coaches are looking for outside of your skill set, your offensive and defensive skill set, that's what's going to help you get recruited. And that's what I'm trying to really emphasize with these kids is, it doesn't matter if you don't put the ball in the hole or you miss a shot, that's okay. There's so many different facets of the game that you have to be able to do that coaches are looking for. And, so that's what I'm trying to instill in them. That's what I'm trying to get them to understand, that it's not all about putting the ball in the basket. You got a bunch of guys that can put the ball in the basket, but they sitting at home. Yeah. Because they couldn't do other things that could help a team. So I think that's really important. I think it's just talking to them about it and letting them understand what really basketball is about. I don't think that changes no matter what the generation is.
So look, man, I'm gonna tell you this. My rookie year in Sacramento when I was in the NBA, I came late, so I did not have a chance to go through training camp and see all of the guys that started off in training camp. But my second year I did. And I remember walking away from that experience thinking to myself, man, it was two dudes that I played with that I think, would have had a great chance of being pros. One of them was a kid, Jesse Martin. Remember Jesse Martin? I thought that dude, when going through training camp, I was like, man.
Straight bucket getter. Straight buckets, yes.
And defending and just doing everything out there. And you, man, I thought that your size, being a pass-first point guard and the way you could defend and just do everything out there, I just thought that about you and Jesse, man. And so you were a hell of a player, Juice. And just like you said about your dad, you were an even better person. I really enjoyed playing with you, man. It was such a pleasure. We had great times on and off.
Yes, we did.
And I text with you every day, man. But it's such a pleasure to have you on the show and talk with you a little bit more in depth about your life, man. So thank you so much for joining me today. Once again, it's such a pleasure not only having you on the show, but just playing with you, man, and going through our college experiences together.
Walt, I appreciate it, man. I mean, your friendship and, we've been doing this a long time, man, being friends and, just the teammate that you were, the person you are. You helped me in so many ways, man. And when people talk about Walt Williams, I get a smile, man, because I know that, you're my boy, man. You're my teammate. And I just appreciate you having me on, man. And we're going to be calling you from College Park, man. So just trust. We're going to be on here in the next couple of weeks or so. So you make sure you answer that phone so we can do this part two.
Can't wait.
Absolutely. But I appreciate you, brother. Thanks so much for having me, man. Thank you.
My pleasure.
To host a player show or appear as a player on a player show, simply create a profile on Fan Media's iOS app or website. Select your teams and make a short intro video on your phone. Show hosts, reporters, former players, and superfans can use our Get Verified feature and make an intro video as well, and our mobile newsroom staff will reach out.